Welcome back to Nature Dogs. Hello everyone, I'm Serena, your hostess for today, and I'm very excited to announce a special guest to today's show. Please welcome to the stage a world-renowned environmentalist and marine biologist, Caroline Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Serena. I'm very honored to be here tonight.
You have been researching ocean pollution over the past year. Can you tell us a little bit about your findings and what you have been doing off the coast of California?
Yes, I have. I am very glad to be on solid ground and off a boat finally. I have been doing research in the Pacific Ocean on a boat, studying what we call the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Oh, that name alone sounds terrible. What exactly is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch?
Well, to put it simply, the Great Pacific Plastic Patch is basically a whirlpool of plastic debris in the middle of the North Pacific Ocean.
Wow, that sounds horrendous. How big exactly is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch?
Well, according to the research we have currently, it is twice the size of Texas and contains more than 1.8 trillion pieces of waste in that big pile of debris. And in that 1.8 trillion pieces weigh up to 80,000 tons.
Wow, that is a really big number. I can't even imagine how heavy it is. Are there only plastic debris in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or does it contain other types of waste?
Well, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is actually a combination of many other wastes that are not limited to plastic.
Wow, mind blown. No wonder there are more than 1.8 trillion pieces of waste in that giant whirlpool.
We are doing our best to clean it up and study the amount of debris, but it ranges from microplastics to litter as large as giant fishing nets.
Do fishermen just leave the nets behind? I had no idea.
Have you ever heard of the term ghost gear?
No, I haven't actually.
Well, the ghost gear is basically abandoned fishing nets that float around the ocean, and marine animals such as sea turtles, whales, seals, dolphins, and others get tangled up in these fishing nets. I'm sure y'all have seen pictures of animals getting tangled up in plastic wastes and heard stories of how they died from suffocation.
I have, and it's absolutely horrible. Those poor animals.
The ones that die from suffocation are actually the lucky ones in this case, since they won't have to endure much pain. The unlucky ones, however, have to live the rest of their life with the wounds that were inflicted on them from the fishing gear.
Oh my goodness. My heart breaks from hearing that. It's just so upsetting to know that we're the cause for all of this pollution.
Yes, it is. Quite sad, really. But sadly, ocean pollution goes far beyond the plastic floating on the ocean surface and the fishing nets. Not to downplay this immense issue, but it is far deeper than that as well. The ocean and the animals that live in them experience toxic chemical waste and nutrient pollution as well.
Where does all of this waste come from? How does it get into the ocean?
Well, most of the nutrient pollution is a result of fertilizer and animal waste that either seeps into the ground and enters oceans and lakes through groundwater or runoff over the land, which flows into water sources as well. The nitrogen and phosphorus from the fertilizer and waste cause algae to grow much too fast for the ecosystem and take the oxygen out of the water. This actually can suffocate masses of fish in the water as well.
What about the chemical waste you mentioned?
The chemical waste aspect of ocean pollution comes from offshore oil spills, ocean mining, and careless industries dumping their waste into the oceans as well.
What is the effect of the chemical, nutrient, and plastic pollution on the marine life?
The effects of all this pollution and climate change has had on the marine life is disastrous. Many fish often mistake small pieces of floating plastic as food, which can poison them or in many cases suffocate them. The nutrient pollution from farm runoff is also dangerous because of what I previously mentioned about marine plants growing far too fast for the ecosystem to handle, taking too much of the oxygen out of the water for fish to breathe. The chemical pollution from oil spills and offshore mining has extreme effects on ecosystems as well. They often create what we call dead zones in the water.
Ooh, what are dead zones?
Dead zones are caused by oil spills or places where there has been a lot of nutrient pollution, causing the marine plants to take too much of the oxygen out of the water. They are almost exactly as the name suggests. No life can live in this part of the ocean because the climate has been ruined for plants or animals to be able to live in such conditions. Really quite sad. Marine life is extremely vulnerable to even the slightest changes in their environment. So anything as small as a few pieces of plastic or as big as rising ocean temperatures or ocean oil spills have major effects.
Wait, the ocean temperatures are rising?
Yes, this is something many people do not know, but the ocean temperatures are rising at an alarming rate each year.
Wow.
Which might sound great to swimmers on the coast, but if marine life cannot adjust well to these changes, the ecosystems will come crashing down. This is one of the reasons for changes such as the coral reef bleaching. All of the coral in the reefs are beginning to die, forcing many fish out of their habitats.
Does this connect to climate change, or is it something different within the oceans?
Yes, exactly. It is a greenhouse effect. As we continue to pollute the air with so much CO2, more heat is trapped in our atmosphere, rising not only the air temperatures and changing climates around the world, but also rising our oceans' temperatures. This is a big deal because oceans' ecosystems are extremely delicate, which is why it is so vital to protect the biodiversity of the marine life and keep their habitat in its natural condition and the ocean at its natural temperature.
Wow, I had no idea. Could you elaborate a little more on the part about biodiversity and the fragile environment? What does that mean exactly?
Biodiversity is basically the thousands of plants and animal species that live in the ocean. Every single plant and animal, large and small, provides something for something else in that same habitat. For example, if the kelp in a certain part of the ocean die, the smaller fish that rely on this ocean kelp will starve and die too. But the cycle does not stop there. If these fish die, the larger fish that eat them also lose another part of their food chain. Or maybe those fish are responsible for eating plants of the coral reef in order for it to get enough sunlight and not get too overgrown. If these smaller fish die, the reef will become overgrown and die too. You see how this is just a huge web of plants and animals that rely on each other to survive. This is part of the reason it is so delicate, because if a few plants and animals die one by one, the species are going to go extinct. If the other reason being these reefs, plants and animals can only live where the water is a certain temperature and there's a certain amount of oxygen in the water. So as water heats up, the fish may try to migrate and starve, or they will simply die because the plants are dying or their bodies simply cannot live under these circumstances. Or if too much phosphorus and nitrogen enters the water, often from ocean runoff, algae and other sea plants will take too much of the oxygen out of the water, causing the fish to suffocate and die, as I previously mentioned. These are issues the ocean is facing right now, so it is quite urgent that the public begins to take action before we have done too much irreversible damage.
Does this affect humans at all? Or what happens in the ocean will just stay in the ocean?
Well, before I answer that question, I have a question to ask you first. Serena, do you eat sushi or fish ever?
Yes, actually, I'm quite a big fan of fish and sushi.
Alright, so let's say you eat fish twice a week for dinner. The fish you've been eating have been caught, say, off the coast of California, where they have been feeding on microplastics floating in the water, as they often mistake these plastics for food.
Yes, okay.
So your fish now has chemicals from the ingested plastic in their body, and then you eat it quite frequently, once or twice a week. These chemicals begin to build up in your body now. Or maybe the fish you've been eating has been exposed to mercury, which is not as uncommon as you would like to think. Mercury works its way up the food chain as it is absorbed by plankton. Now you could suffer from kidney damage, reproductive problems, nervous system damage, or even diseases as serious as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or heart disease.
Oh my goodness, Caroline. You might scare me away from eating fish now. I will be safe then if I don't eat them, right?
Well, actually no. Humans are much more dependent on the ocean than we may know about or like to think, maybe. The air we breathe is breathable partially because the oceans absorbs about 30% of the carbon emissions that we pump into the air. Not only that, but about 70% of the oxygen we breathe is produced by the plants of the ocean.
So you're saying without the ocean, there will be no human life?
Precisely, yes, but I would not like to find out.
Me neither. Hearing about all of this is just so sad. I'm sure most of us in the audience, myself included, want to help to solve this issue. What can we do to do our part and to help our oceans?
Well, first off, elections are coming up. Find out what candidates are concerned with climate change and are wanting to take action. Take one of the candidates, Stacey Abrams, for example. To quote her words, as governor of Georgia, she would invest in advanced and renewable energy through a Georgia Green Bank and other initiatives. To protect our communities from climate change, say no to drilling off the Georgia coastline, fight for clean water and keep communities safe from coal ash. Stand for environmental justice to ensure that communities of color and low-income communities are not disproportionately impacted by industrial and commercial products. And focus on expanding public transit and low-emission vehicles.
That sure sounds like a lot of work. If she does get elected, I hope she'll live up to her words.
I sure hope so too.
What about the other candidate, Brian Kemp?
Unfortunately, there is nothing about the environment in his campaign, so I'm afraid I can't answer that question for you. However, I can tell you that besides paying attention to the election, the next best thing we can do to save the environment would be simply using less plastic. Get a reusable water bottle and stop buying single-use plastic water bottles. Get a Tupperware for your food and get reusable grocery bags when you go shopping to eliminate the need for plastic bags. Recycle and try to use less energy on a daily basis. Use less fertilizer on your plants in your yard, and just clean up the beaches or waterways when you see pieces of garbage or plastic. Don't walk by it, simply pick it up and throw it away.
I know that metal straws are a thing now, following the whole Save the Turtle movement. They are actually pretty convenient to use too. Plus, it's very light, so it won't be a bother to carry it around in your bag.
Yes, there are also reusable utensil sets that you can now buy at stores. That way, instead of getting a plastic fork or spoon whenever you eat out, you can use the reusable ones instead. This is a great way to reduce plastic waste.
I have a pink set at home actually, and I can vouch for it. It's the same as a normal plastic utensil, except it's prettier and more environmentally friendly.
I'm so glad to hear that you have already taken steps to reduce waste, my friend.
Of course! The earth is in danger, and I will do anything to help it out.
Awesome, so great to hear.
So, besides recycling, is there anything else that we can do?
Recycling is the main thing that we can do. However, if you feel like you want to do more, there are many events such as beach cleanups that you can participate in. Basically, at beach cleanups, groups of people go to different beaches and help pick up trash. This helps a little since less trash will be carried into the oceans when the tides rise. Also, the beaches will be prettier and more enjoyable.
I know there's a beach cleanup coming soon. It's actually next Saturday if I remember correctly.
Yep, it's hosted by the Marine Life Foundation. I would encourage anyone who has the time to go and help. Not only will you make friends, but you'll also be helping with the plastic waste problem.
Wow, that is so great to know. I'll see you there for sure, and I'm hoping many of our listeners will see you there too.
Awesome, I can't wait. See you this weekend, and I encourage you all to start making small changes to protect our oceans. There are so many small and cost-efficient changes in our everyday lives that can have an impact on the larger scale if we can all come together and do something for a change.
Thank you so much, Caroline. We really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today, and I hope the people listening are even inspired to start making some of these changes to help marine life in our oceans too.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again for coming.